What's up? Mojave Mateo here, and this upcoming video I'm about to play is from my speech this past Saturday at the RO Indigenous Embrace Intertribal Gathering ceremony event that took place in Hesperia in the Mojave Desert here this past Saturday. And I was really excited about this opportunity to do this speech. A couple of things I wanted to mention first before I play it. One is that for some reason it stopped recording a couple minutes short. So what was a little under 20 minutes of a talk, it caught a little over 15 minutes, I think. And I don't know why. I still had like 3-4% battery left when I got done with the speech and looked at the camera. And at first I was a little worried that I didn't record anything because it was off. But fortunately it did record a majority of it. But for some reason it got cut a little short. But the majority of it is there. Second thing I wanted to mention is something really cool happened during this speech that did not get caught on camera because it happened towards the end that got cut out there. And that was during the speech, I was talking about ancestral spirits and then being out there in nature and how we need to connect with those spirits for health and well-being and healing and understanding and intuition that can guide us places, understanding of ourselves. And in the middle of that, a whirlwind kicked up right next to me, started kicking up leaves. It was pretty cool. The spirit showed up right in the middle of my speech. And even a native gentleman off to the side that was watching, he noticed it too. He made reference of it. So that was really cool, really special. But hey, kind of odd that it cut out around that time. Maybe the spirits didn't want to be seen. Maybe it was just for that moment. But you know, regardless whether I caught on camera or not, it was still a really cool moment. So I was really pleased by that. That was nice for the ancestors to show up for a moment during my speech. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I've done a variety of public speaking, stand-up comedy, emceeing, cooking demos, wellness classes. I've gone to schools for junior highs and high schools and have done speeches on anti-bullying and a variety of things. So I'm very comfortable public speaking, never get nervous anymore. But this was different. This one, I was a little more in my head about this one because I never done anything like this. And it wasn't just that it was the first time doing this, it's that within the Native community, as some of you may know, it's a very prideful community and very sacred community, understandably so, rightfully so, I get that. And depending on who it is, you know, some of them could be a little more strict about the culture and the verbiage that is used and, you know, can get offended or just upset, you know, at certain the way things are said or the angle you take at something. So I understood. I was walking on eggshells a little bit with this one. You know, I've never been real deep into my own Native history. It's there. I've been learning more about it over the last couple of years, especially with the help of going to the sweat lodges with the RO Embrace. So that was a little tricky for me. You know, I was asked by Richard of the nonprofit, but I was honored when he asked me if I wanted to do a presentation. It's the first one they've ever done here in Hesperia. So I was definitely honored, grateful, and wanted to do it. But, you know, I knew, okay, this is different. So I was a little more in my head about this one, making sure, again, I didn't say anything wrong or, you know, anything inaccurate. So I focused more on not going deep into the culture of the natives here in this land, but more about the experiences of the land that I've come across, the energies out there, the natives that did live out here and some of the ways they use the land and things like that. Instead of going too deep into culture, I made reference at the beginning, as you'll hear, that I'm not a historian, an archaeologist, or anything like that. So I laid that out there, and I did get really good feedback. A lot of people gave me some really cool compliments about it. Even came up to me later saying they want to go to these spots or that they have spots that they would like me to go with them to. Some that they've already been to, some that they haven't been. So that was really nice to know I made that connection and people saw my appreciation for the land and the ancestral spirits out there. So it went well, but even though it went well on the surface, I didn't feel as control and as smooth in my head. There's more ums than I would have liked to have said, just because this wasn't something that I had a normal flow with. I had to think a little bit more since I'd never done it. I knew what I wanted to say, but I didn't structure it to a T because I didn't want to lock myself in thinking even more to another level. So I kept it just kind of in my head what I wanted to go with, not too concrete. I didn't go over a structured list and order. So that there were some ums and a few words that I misused. I like undisturbed. At some point you might catch that. I said something about, yeah, you might catch that or not, but just misused a couple words. But my energy was good, my delivery was good, my confidence was there. So despite having a little bit of that, you know, kind of, like I said, being in my head some. So I was really pleased with it for a first time speech like this. Not often these events happen. It's not often that someone gets asked to speak at these kind of events. I was the only speaker really. It was mostly dancers, a musician. So, you know, I knew it really had to come through and deliver. I feel like I did, but wasn't my most comfortable self inside. I had to really, you know, think where I was going next. So I just want to lay that out there. So that's why there's a few more ums than I would have liked to have been. But overall, it went well, got the good feedback, had the spirit show up. So it must have been good if they showed up for it. And again, I was very honored to be able to have this opportunity to deliver a speech like this for an event like this in a city, a very natural, wonderful place like this that I've lived in for 30 years. So I'm very grateful for that, and hopefully next year I'll be able to participate some way again, maybe give me some new information, but we'll see. Regardless, I'll be there, and enjoy this 15-minute clip that ended a little bit short. Thank you very much, and if you want, check out the other video I posted recently with the actual vlog from the event. I'm not going to tell you subscribe, like, all that. That's not my style. You're grown YouTubers. You know how to work all that, and you know how to subscribe to something if you want to. So enjoy. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this. Take care.
How's everyone doing, Hesperia? You having a good time so far? Let's hear that noise. All right, I was getting chills hearing that damn thing. So I'm Matthew Piccioni, Mojave Mateo. I'm going to be doing a little bit of speaking on some of the native history here in the high desert. And first off, I want to thank our own Indigenous Embrace and everybody who helped put this event on. It was something that the community really needed. Shed some light, celebrate the native life here and all around, you know, tribal gathering. And thank you all for coming out, supporting. This is awesome. Great day. And real quick, just a little rundown about myself. I'm not a historian. I'm not an archaeologist or anything, you know, super official like that. I have myself lived in the Mojave Desert here now for 30 years. And I've been someone who, through my own curiosities and interests, have learned and researched the native life here in the high desert. So we're going to kind of cover some areas where I really want to encourage you to get out in the nature that we have and connect with that ancestral spirit and energy. Just for anybody who's listening, who's not from here in the high desert, who does not live in the high desert here? Anybody? You don't. So where'd you guys come from? Dallas. Oh, okay. That's awesome. We got Dallas in the house, you guys. That's awesome. So first off, like I said, I want to talk about really the connection here with the land and the natives that were living here most recently were the Van Yume natives, the Van Yume. And one interesting link that I found out about them was that they actually have a genetic link to the Rumsinaloni, which Indigenous Embrace, who nonprofit that put this on, that's their tribe. So I found it very interesting that the people here of the high desert have a genetic link with the indigenous people of Northern California. So they obviously through migration made it down here. And the thing about here in the high desert with the native history, it's all over. Anybody who's ever explored and went around hiking and gone to the trails, that rich history is still here. It's one of the few places I feel, especially in the United States, where you can still tap into that history. You can go out there and walk that land and see the signs of it, the remains, the metaphorical footprints that are out there of the natives. And I'm going to talk about some of those spots. And it's interesting, just down near Lucerne Valley, some of you might know about Chimney Rock. Chimney Rock is maybe 6-7 miles from here. It actually is a monument there. Chimney Rock in 1867 is where the last known battle happened between natives and settlers in California, or at least Southern California. And I think that's something that we don't realize is how not far we are removed from this history. 1867 is just 5 years ago. You know, that's maybe 2 generations right there that battle happened. So this is a place I want to encourage people, go out there and connect with that ancient energy and those ancestral spirits, because it's waiting out there, want to be connected with. And another interesting thing about time frames, I talked to a gentleman a few years ago that I just met through Uber, conversation. He was a junior explorer when he was younger. He was in his 70s. This man told me through his own experience, he was a junior explorer in 1950. And in 1950 something in Barstow, through his own experience, they came across an uncontacted tribe of natives in Barstow in the 1950s. So that's, depending on what part of the 50s, that might be less than 70 years ago. Just one person's lifespan, one generation ago, there was contact with an uncontacted tribe in Barstow. So that's the kind of history we have here that's still rich. And if you hike these areas, has anybody ever been to Horseman's Park out in Apple Valley? Anybody? You've been there? You've been there? So you probably notice weird things when you're out there, and right, she's smiling. There's a lot of interesting rock formations out there. Trails, old faded trails. I go on Google Earth. I've spent an immense amount of time on Google Earth just looking at the land, and it's unbelievable how many trails are out there. And you know they weren't just the settlers and the people mining, because I mean these are trails that haven't even been used in a long time, and they're still there. So they're ancient trails. And there's a lot of rock formations out there that you can see were used for some of the spiritual practices. That's one thing we know, is a lot of the land, they use this land in a very powerful way. To kind of elaborate more on that, I came across a document I was reading that just blew my mind. You know, some people look at spiritual stuff, I'm sure nobody here does, but some people look at spiritual stuff as hokey or don't believe in it. But you know, natives, you know, spiritual ceremonies, supernatural travel. I was reading documents by solar companies. So whenever a solar company comes and builds on the land, they have to do report and research on the land. And in these documents I've read, these are billion-dollar companies like Edison, and they're talking about the coordinates of where natives believed in supernatural travel. You know, why would a billion-dollar company find a need to put that in their documents or research, that where the natives believed in supernatural travel? And is that why they're deciding to put their energy, you know, platforms and buildings in these areas? So this area here in the Mojave Desert, especially the area we're in now, despite the development, still a very powerful place. And again, I want to encourage you get out there and utilize the land. The Mojave River, if you're not familiar with the Mojave riverbed, it's not what it used to be. It used to be a thriving, rushing river that was the life source of the Van Yume natives. If you're not familiar, it runs through all the main streets here. So when you're on Main Street, you take that to Rock Springs Road and Deep Creek, the riverbed runs right there. When you go down Bear Valley, it's going to run over the bridge that's going east past VVC right before you get to Apple Valley Road. And if you've ever traveled down the river walk, you know what a beautiful, peaceful, have you ever been that way? So the river walk is an amazing little experience. You wouldn't think much of it, but you start getting further down, there's just so much trees that have fallen and that are no longer standing, but you can still feel the energy of what was once there, the life that was once there. And so then you got Highway 18, and when you cross the bridge going into D Street to Apple Valley, that not only was one of the main villages of the Van Yume right there. So when the settlers started coming in late 1700s, early 1800s, that was one of the main villages they came across. I believe the name was like Topipabit. Excuse me for the mispronunciation if you're familiar with that actual name. And that was a very thriving, lush area. But the thing is, when the settlers started coming in, you know, the Europeans, the new people, there wasn't that many native tribes here, because as you know, the Mojave River started washing up. It's believed that the river started drying up about 9,000 years ago. So their migration out of here happened a while ago, long time ago. So by the time that the new people showed up, they were already kind of trickling out, going east, down south. And another interesting thing about the water here, we know it to be a very dry place. You rarely see water rushing through that Mojave River, but it used to be a much different place. If you've ever been on these mountain peaks, where the Bell Mountain, the Horseman's Park, the Marianas, it's amazing that you could see how that water used to rush through here with your own eyes, your own feelings. You could see the ripples in the sand. Has anybody ever taken the drive from the 40 freeway out to Needles? Anybody? So if you've taken that drive, you know what a magical drive that is. And you're driving through a prehistoric ocean bed, you know, and that preserve was full of native life at one point, that they utilized that land and all its powers. But then we're sitting in an area that used to be covered in water. That, you know, these mountain peaks weren't mountain peaks at one point, they were just the land. So the natives got to see a much different place than we did. Just like Death Valley. Death Valley, natives were kind of offended when the settlers gave it that name, because it used to be lush, full of life and greenery. It wasn't, you know, the natives knew how to sustain life there, but the new people came in, they thought, oh, this is just, it's death, it's an ugly place. But no, it was once full of life and trees, and again, all this energy is out there. Something interesting, near the landfill, going to the Barstow, Stoddard Wells Road out there. Anybody wants to see photos, just let me know. I'll kind of tell you where it is. It's one of the most fascinating things I've ever come across anywhere, especially in this desert. But just right there south of the landfill is the Mojave Desert rock faces. There's very little info on it, but they're literally right there by the riverbed. Numerous faces carved out of rocks. They have different expressions on them, and there's even a three-dimensional face on the opposite side. Very little is known. There's really nothing you can find about these. I've seen very little on the internet. I didn't even know the three-dimensional face existed. But to come across something like that, right, you just leave your town a few miles away, and you're looking at rock faces chiseled in to the land that who knows how many thousands of years ago those might have been done. So, and the interesting thing too is right maybe a mile from it in 1929, a native burial was unearthed accidentally by a settler excavating the land. And upon research of the bones, they said these were ancient natives, pre-Spaniards, ancient people from a long time ago. So it's believed that people showed up in this desert anywhere from 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, which is a long time ago. So, you know, so this land has been, you know, occupied by new development for hardly any time at all. And that's why when you get out there and you see these, like Horseman's Park, let me go back to that. I get excited about this stuff, so sometimes I might jump around. For Horseman's Park, I encourage anybody, you have to go to Horseman's Park. It's one of the most fascinating places out here. If you take Highway 18 all the way down, Bear Valley all the way down, where it T-bones towards a certain valley, and you turn left, north, you're going to come across this big, giant rock landscape. And it looks kind of small from the street, but as you get on this thing, as anybody knows, it's massive. And there's signs of native life all over. There's rocks that are balanced on other rocks. I've actually found stone tools at that mountain. It blew my mind. I have them at my house, holding them. You know, they're not the way I found them, where they're at. It was amazing. So, and when you go there, the energy. That's why I encourage people to go to these places where we have these natural access to this natural historic land that hasn't been undisturbed, because there's energies you're going to experience that you haven't felt. You're going to feel the ancestors there. And sometimes it might be a little weird, but it's just because it's so peaceful. We're used to being the hustle and bustle of life, you know, running errands, going to work, that sometimes you come across such a peaceful, untouched, pure energy that it throws you off a little bit. It might be a little uncomfortable, but in reality, it's something you want to engage with. And Horseman's Park, there's actually one area, Indigenous Embrace and I, we went on a hike last year on Earth Day up there with a big group. And there was one interesting rock formation. It maybe was one of these portals, but in front of this rock formation is a rock-made obulus, like a podium. It's a very odd shape, made out of rock. It's not natural. And when you look at the rock in front of it, you could see that the rocks, there was something there. And me and Elisa, we noticed that even in the middle of the day, that with the sun beating down on all these rocks, that some of them were cold. Some of them weren't all the same temperature. So it's very interesting, like, why is this rock different temperature than this one? They're the same rock under the same sun, but different temperature. So something, you can use your own intuition and intelligence to know something was going on here at a prior time. There's trails all over that mountain, and there's a rock house on that mountain. There's literally a rock house made with walls. There's an entryway, and there's actually, when you get on these mountains, you'd be surprised what you come across. We can't see it right now because it's blocked by the building, but later when you look to the east, the tallest mountain in the east sky over there in Apple Valley, at the very peak of it, it's strange. There's a circular rock wall from an much older time, and then there's a big boulder overhanging that's painted blue, like an old faded blue. So it just kind of makes your mind wonder what was going on here. And what's interesting, not only is that wall up there, not only is that painted blue rock up there, but there's also a trail from that top of that mountain that leads through the valleys to the top of Chimney Rock where that last battle happened. So that could have been very much the trail that they took to go to their battle with the settlers. So it's amazing. And something interesting about that mountain peak right there, I was telling you, you could feel these energies. I went up there once by myself, and I felt the need to announce myself. Coming here in peace. And the only thing I can gather, it was the spirits up there that I needed to let, hey, I'm here to respect the land, not disturb it. I'm here out of curiosity, interest, and learning, and reconnecting with the energy that they put out there. So, lot of interesting things. Petroglyphs off the 40 freeway, Rodman Hills. If you ever want to look that up, Rodman Hills off the 40 freeway. Lots of known petroglyphs out there. Of course, you always want to respect those and not touch them. Just look, take pictures is fine.